Hello and welcome back to my studio. It's Lois here, and today I'm going to be sharing this beginner-friendly loose watercolour beach scene with a lovely blue cloudy sky and a headland in the distance. So the first thing to do is to draw in a really simple horizon line using a ruler about 2/3 of the way across the page, and then to put in the sort of slope of the beach, and then just a small headland with a few indications for sort of rocky outcrops and a few trees on the top of the headland, and then just a small distant headland much lower towards the back. My paper is unstretched. It's Saunders Waterford cold press watercolour paper. It's taped to my board, and my board's at an angle of about 20 to 30 degrees. Just before the demo though, a quick plug for my new book, Landscapes in Watercolour, Techniques and Tutorials for the Complete Beginner. It's now available to purchase from all good bookstores around the world, and I've been having a wonderful reaction from people that have bought it. There's some lovely reviews on Amazon. So please follow the links below if you're interested in taking a look at my new book. Many thanks for watching the plug. Now let's get back to the demo. The first step today is to paint the sky and the sea using two colours and one brush and the wet in wet method. I'm using my large Princeton Aqua Elite Modeler brush for this and wetting the sky mostly all over, leaving a few dry patches for clouds. And I'm doing the same with the sea, but using horizontal brush strokes, again leaving a few dry patches so that the white of the paper will just suggest wave crests. This is a mid-value mix of cobalt blue with a little bit of cerulean blue added to it to brighten it up and give it a lovely summer glow. And I'm now spreading it across the page, going sort of from behind the headland up towards the top of the page to sort of make it look as if the clouds are sort of blowing across the sky and sort of coming across the beach. Just these little tiny feathery clouds. As the paint runs out on my brush, it becomes a little bit fainter and paler down towards the horizon, keeping it nice and flat at the horizon. Softening any edges just by rubbing into them with a damp brush. Now adding a little bit more darkness very quickly across the top before everything dries, so I've got that richer blue across the top of the sky, becoming paler down towards the horizon. And that's it for my sky. Now using the tips of the brushes in the same colour, bringing across the blue for the sea, keeping it nice and straight at the horizon, and leaving plenty of little gaps of unpainted paper by sort of skipping the brush over the paper to give me the suggestion of light on the water. And then I've taken a clean damp flat brush and I'm just softening back that heavier mark on the horizon. I want it a little bit lighter than that, and I can at the same time flatten out my horizon line. And that's it for my sky and my sea. I now need to leave everything to dry. Now that the sky and sea are dry, I'm going to work into the beach using the wet on dry technique, using a combination of raw umber and raw sienna and the tips of my 1.5 inch Modeler brush to spread the paint across the beach, trying to build up a little bit of variety in the texture and the values. Now, using the 3/4 inch flat brush, I'm bringing some of that beach colour into the headland in places. Working in around the marks that I've made with my pencil, the little guidelines that I put in at the beginning. Then I can darken the tone by adding some Payne's Grey, a bit of burnt umber to that mix. Continue to build up the suggestions of the rocky slopes in sort of shadow. And then I shall work some sap green with a little bit of burnt sienna added to it, just to tone it down a bit, across the top for the sort of the grassy tops and some of the trees on the top of the headland. Sorry my hand's in the way, but I'm just using my rigger, I'll move it in a minute, and my rigger brush and a mixture of Payne's Grey and burnt umber, and painting in some very fine lines for tree trunks to connect the headland to the tree canopies that I've just painted in, and then getting a few extra darks in here and there, especially down where the headland meets the water. Using the tips of my Watercolour brush again for this. Just changing brushes when I feel like I need it. Like I changed to my size 14 round brush with its good tip to paint in the tree canopies, which are a little bit more detailed than the kind of slabby marks that I'm looking to make for the headland. And then swapping to my finer tipped 3/4 inch flat brush, just using it clean and damp to clean up the waterline. And then dipping into the same dark colour I used for the headland to add a few little dark touches along the shoreline. This is my small calligraphy brush, and I'm using it to scrape a bit of raw sienna and burnt sienna across the lighter parts of the headland. And now I'm going to take my palette knife, and just before the paint dries, I'm going to scrape through the paint just to create some slabby, rocky textures, keeping the tonal values that are there for the most part, but creating texture. As I drag the palette knife through the paint, it moves it around, and the paint sort of pulls up around the bottom, gives me a nice darker mark and reveals the colour of the paint below. Carrying on, just building up a bit more texture in the beach and the shoreline. Now I want to paint in my distant headland, and I want to create depth and distance through aerial perspective. So I've mixed up quite a pale sort of greenish blue colour, or bluish green. Very pale, very light value, and using my size 14 round brush, which has got a nice point, I'm just sort of painting in the headlands that I drew in pencil lightly at the beginning, keeping them nice and flat against the horizon line. Just allowing the paint to sort of run out so that they become even fainter, and this gives me a good sense of depth and distance. Now I've dipped into a darker green mixed with Payne's grey and sap green, just darkening up underneath the canopies of some of these little suggested trees on the top, adding a bit more shadow here and there. I'm now going to use a technique known as soft masking to protect the sea and the sky. So I'm going to lay a piece of paper across the sea and the sky, just leaving the beach exposed. And now I'm going to mix up various shades of sort of brown and darker sort of brownish black, and using my fan brush and an inky consistency of these mixes, I'm going to spatter some texture into the beach, and this will just give me a little bit of extra suggested texture in the beach excuse me, without me having to paint too much over detail, keeping things nice and loose. The paper, of course, protects the sky. Without this, the spatter marks could sort of end up going into the sky and the sea, and we don't want that. So this is a lovely technique. Then when I'm done, I can just simply remove the paper mask and we can see the texture on the beach. And I think that's just about it for this really simple beach scene. And I hope you'll agree that it's beginner friendly, but also intermediates could work into this and refine it a little bit more. Maybe add some figures on the beach or some birds. So removing the masking tape, we get to see it with a clean white border and take a look and just sort of see whether we think it needs any additional details. But I don't think so. I think for a simple loose painting, it's nice to keep things fresh. It's nice to know when to stop. And the best place to stop, I think, is just before you think it's finished. And then walk away, leave it for a while, and then come back every now and again. And that'll give you time to decide whether or not you want to add birds or figures or anything like that, or maybe add a bit more value, a bit more texture. But as I say, it's best to walk away just before you think something is finished, and that way you don't run the risk of overworking it. So I hope that was helpful. If you enjoyed the demo, then please click on the thumbs up button, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel, then I invite you to become a part of our lovely art community here on YouTube. And many thanks to everyone in our Patreon communities. If you'd like to support us and the channel there, then please follow the links below. And of course, if you're interested in my new book, there are links below to that as well. Many thanks again. Take care and happy painting. Bye.